unfortunately for front of house people and people who identify as women, myself, we cop it from customers, employees, colleagues, the media, you name it. You know, it pulls you down, and hospitality is hard enough physically and mentally, and it's very exhausting that I feel like no one should have to deal with anything like misogyny or like sexism in the industry as well.
Are you a woman in hospitality? Are you a person who sees women working in hospitality? If so, this chat is for you. Our guest today is Kaidee Grzankowski. Kaidee has just opened her first venue, Maggie's Snacks and Liquor in Brunswick, on a super restaurant-y bar-ish strip, but she is bringing something different to Brunswick with Maggie's. High-end cocktails are the vibe, but there's also such good snacks. I'm really happy to have Kaidee on the show. She's a hospo lifer, and thank you so much for being here, Kaidee.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Give us a little bit of backstory about Maggie's, first of all.
Well, Maggie's came about as a bit of a pipe dream, really, between a couple of friends and I. As you mentioned, I've been a lifer. I am a lifer. I've been in the industry a really long time. Every time I try to step out of the industry and do something else, I always got pulled back, and I really love it. So Maggie's came about because of two things that relate to our business and company name, Snacks and Liquor. Like a lot of folks in the industry, we love snacks and we love liquor. So we just really got to a point where we wanted to, do our own thing and bring a bit of a pipe dream to life, like I said. The site itself fell into our laps through an old industry friend of mine, Nathan, who's currently one of our business partners as well from the Mulberry Group. And it's a very big site for a first site, but we thought, why not? Let's just give it a go. And the name comes about from my grandmother. So my grandmother, Maggie, is a beautiful late 80s light and shining light of my life. And she loves a beer and she loves a champagne. So we thought, well, let's name it after Nan.
I really need to meet Maggie one day because she sounds super awesome. I remember we spoke about her once before, and she sounds like she takes no shit from anybody.
That's exactly right. Gosh, my mum would say that exact same thing. So Nan is about seemingly 4 foot tall, tiny little beautiful curly haired Nan, floral dresses, and my pop is 6.5 foot tall, ex-police officer. Nan is an ex-army nurse, and she 100% takes no shit from anyone, and she's highly respected in our family for that reason.
I love that. Well, it's probably relevant that we're talking about this strong woman in your life as we, I guess, get into the meat of today's topic, which is what it's like to be a woman working in hospitality. Are things better than they used to be? How bad did they used to be? And what are they like now? We focus on misogyny and sexism a little bit on this podcast over time, but it hasn't been an explicit topic for a while. I think it's never a bad time to talk about it. Perhaps let's start with what we think of as misogyny. Tell us your perspective, Kaidee.
Absolutely. I got to be honest, I've found this topic really hard. I've been trying to write notes for a couple of days, and you're someone wonderful to talk with because you're very supportive. But I've always been very passionate about, equality for women in the industry and people who identify as women. But I've really find this topic hard because for a long time I think I have grown up in certainly a patriarchal standard, family environment, and a lot of the parts that fall under misogyny, particularly in hospitality, it's almost going against the grain of what I know and the way I've been raised. And a lot of people in my era of the industry, so late 30s, feel exactly the same. In hospitality, it's obviously very similar to the rest of the world and life and other industries. But, you know, for us, particularly myself, I can obviously only talk about what I've experienced myself. It's everything from, you know, sexual objectification right through to sexual harassment, general sexism, violence, gaslighting, inequality between the genders. With us, I guess, my experience has been pretty vast. I started in hospitality when I was, let's say, legally 14 years, 9 months. The misogyny, like I said, I find it hard to talk about because having grown up in a particular society that I have, you know, you're always kind of treated and taught to dress a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way, and react a certain way to certain behaviours of other people, particularly men. A big part of the service industry is that we're there to serve. I'm front of house. I can't speak for anyone in the kitchen, and I certainly can't speak for anyone behind a bar, but you know, I work front of house. I've run plenty busy restaurants and cafes. And, you know, so unfortunately for front of house people and people who identify as women, myself, we cop it from customers, employees, colleagues, the media, you name it. You know, you and I spoke a little while ago about someone in the industry had made a pretty dodgy comment about the way someone was dressed. And unfortunately, it completely overshadowed both, I guess, that restaurant and that person's experience, and overshadowed this person's work as a writer. And, you know, I said to you, thank you for saying something, because frankly, I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of being, you know, I guess you get all this kind of you get treated a certain way based on your looks, but at the end of the day, it actually doesn't really matter about your looks. It doesn't matter what you wear, whether you're wearing a paper bag or a tight dress. Someone will always say something, and that someone is generally, unfortunately, always a male. So, yeah, I guess for me as well in the industry, I think there's a lot of misogyny coming from internal dialogue that I think a lot of people don't realise that they have. They say that they're feminist aligned. They say, oh, because I've got so many female friends, this is just a joke. I can get away with it. And I don't think people realise it's as serious and it cuts more deep than they actually think. You know, I started this company just as mentioned, just as a little pipe dream, and I really wanted to bring to life a lot of ideas that I have. And I have learned in only the short few months that we've started Maggie's, I've learned a lot about customers, employees, colleagues, directors, fellow directors in the business as well. And, you know, unfortunately, where that can come from, where it goes, can get a little bit kind of, you know, it pulls you down. And hospitality is hard enough physically and mentally, and it's very exhausting, that I feel like no one should have to deal with anything like misogyny or like sexism in the industry as well.
Wow. Look, so well said, so powerful, and, you know, coming from a very deep place. So first of all, you know, good on you for bringing this up and thinking about it so hard and speaking about it. I think one of the things that I hear as you're talking is that now that you've become a leader and a business owner, you really do feel the burden of putting your values into action, and hopefully, you know, not letting people that you're responsible for experiencing some of the things that you unfortunately have experienced yourself. I mean, would that be a fair reading?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's so ingrained in society, and as people who identify as female, we are so well trained into just sucking shit up. What's been the process for you in realising that some things that society tells you you just need to let wash over you were actually not okay?
Oh, gosh. That is a really interesting question, and certainly goes back a long time. It's taken me 10 to 15 years to be able to even stand up for myself. I've always been known as a person in general and in the hospitality industry for being strong and being assertive, but I would never speak my mind. And I certainly, for a long time, never spoke up for myself, never spoke up for customers that were being harassed or other waiters because I was scared. I was scared I'd lose my job. I was scared that if I spoke up, I'd be called out as being too sensitive or too emotional, all of those kind of words. So I'll be honest when I say, like, opening this business, like you said, has put me in this position where I actually realise that I am hugely responsible for not just the experience that we give our customers and our female identifying customers, but also our staff. In the last couple of years before I started this business, I was working for Black Hearts and Sparrows. And I bring them up because I learnt obviously a lot about wine and some really cool things there, but there's a really amazing structure there. And I still to this day can't put my finger on why they do it or how they do it. But the interesting thing across that company, it doesn't matter if it's in the warehouse or in the shops, they have a really diverse group of employees, diverse in terms of what everyone is actually doing for a role. Are they studying? Are they travelling? Do they even care about wine? Do they not? But what I really loved about it is everyone, the respect amongst employees and from the higher ups about whether it be your sexual orientation or how you identify. It was amazing and it actually taught me a lot. And one big thing I say these days is, when I was 20, when I was 21, if I had half of the support or in the media, if we were talking about half of this stuff, God, it would have been, I could have conquered the world. And I really believe that. And, Black Hearts taught me a lot about the fact that, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not in my early 20s. I'm not finding my feet. I have, for some part, found my feet. I've opened my own business. And what does that look like for my staff? I have a really amazing team together, all different backgrounds, different countries, different sexualities. Most of that, frankly, none of my business. But how do I support them when something goes wrong? When examples of things that we had to deal with a long time ago compared to now, and thinking back and thinking back of little me when I was starting to work in the industry, if that happened to any of my staff now, I would be completely blowing up. I have remembered one of my earliest memories of, I guess, misogyny in the industry was when it's like one of my first jobs. I was 15. I was working in this little local pizza restaurant, and I was fired for apparently stealing money. And now this is in the days where your pay packet was given to you in a little yellow envelope. They probably didn't pay tax or super, highly likely. I, just for the record, have never stolen a dime in my life. I don't see the point. I've grown up with a mum who works in finance and taught me a lot about money. So for me, it's not something I do or have ever done. I also never received an apology from those owners because it turned out that I was the scapegoat for one of the men in the company that we were working for. The other kind of interesting things that happened that made me get to where I am now is that, sexual harassment and unwanted attention, unfortunately, not just from customers. You get it from customers whether you're serving alcohol or not, unfortunately. But I would fire very quickly without warning somebody in our team, especially someone higher up who was showing too much attention towards a younger staff member. I worked when I was 18 at another restaurant where I'm from, and I was, as mentioned, 18. I was getting constantly hit on, love letters, you name it, from the head chef, and he was 45. and I had no interest whatsoever in this person. I ended up having to leave the business because it got so out of hand that I was not feeling safe or comfortable to go to work. Other points that I want to kind of bring up, because it will kind of eventually get back to, what we're talking about, the topic here is, I've unfortunately lost count of the amount of times that I have been physically and sexually harassed in this industry and in my life, which is really disappointing. I grew up in a time in hospitality, particularly in bars and around alcohol, where if you were touched by a male colleague, particularly a male owner, we were almost treated and made to feel like that behaviour from them was a compliment to us. And that comes from both, behind the scenes in the business, colleagues and whatnot, and from customers. I have also experienced things where men still to this day will sexually harass me in some way, shape or form when another male is out of the room. For example, I worked at a wine bar, we were closing up and there was a couple of customers there, and a particular customer waited until not only every other customer had left, but also my manager at the time. He had walked out the door finishing his shift. I was closing up. This person actually went out of their way to wait for me and say some pretty awful things and to try and touch me. And it's just, unfortunately, alcohol is a lot to blame, but I think owners are a lot to blame. I have a staff member that is close to my age. She comes and works with us casually, and she's an amazing front of house waiter. She's probably one of the best I've ever worked with. She came up to me a couple of weeks ago and said, "Hey, I need to tell you something just in case you get a complaint from table X." I say, "Yep, what's up?" And she says, he has been so rude to her about asking about a particular classic cocktail and whether or not our team could make it, that she actually had a go at him and she put him in his place, and he was shocked and he bit back at her again. And my first reaction, I said to her, "Great, what did he say? Did he deserve it?" And she said, "Yes, this is what he said and this is what I've said." And I said, "Okay, well, if he's got the balls to come and complain about you, we're going to have a problem." And then my second question to her was, "Do you want me to ask him to leave? I'll walk over right now and I'll kick him out of this restaurant." And I'll be honest with you, I've only ever had one business in my entire career, and I've been in this industry a long time, that actually stood up for me and kicked a customer out of the business because of this kind of behaviour. One business. And that's really sad, So I think with my staff now, if someone even looks at them the wrong way, I'm going to be on it like white on rice. I'm going to be very quick because I just think, our place is hospitality. We're not earning millions of dollars, and we don't have to do more than just serve a meal and wipe a table. And if anyone is coming in expecting that from my staff, regardless of their age or their gender, any of that, it needs to be stamped out, and it needs to be bloody called out by owners because it's not being called out enough.
Well, I feel really upset by some of the things you've said. I feel really outraged and really angry, and I also feel really quite sick, like ill. And I think, a lot of what you're saying will call up a lot of really strong reactions in people who can unfortunately relate all too closely to some of the things that you're saying. And I do want to say that if this is bringing up stuff for people that you need someone to talk about, 1-800-RESPECT is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week hotline for people who have experienced or are at risk of experience sexual assault as well as domestic violence. It's big stuff, Kaidee. It goes to some of the real rot that is at the heart of the way we relate to one another in this society. And I feel your rage and also your sense of empowerment at creating, a better world in your own business. I'd like to just go back to what you were talking about at Black Heart and Sparrows. And I wanted to ask if this culture that you're speaking about was something that was very explicit in policies in the business, or whether it was more of a vibe thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring it up, because I absolutely adore Black Heart and Sparrows, and I worked with them for 2 years. I think I adore them because I lost work during COVID, like a lot of people, and after a few months they gave me a go, even if it was half a shift a week, and I was able to get work. But I love them because of this diversity. It was in policy. They did write it in policy, and I really loved that, and I've taken that into the way I form my business policies now as well. They put the obvious legal and workplace laws within all of their policies and employment documents and contracts, but they also openly talk about when they're employing, for example, that they are gender diverse. But they don't just say it. It's not just token behaviour. It is everywhere. You can see it in all of their shops. You can walk, obviously the average bear can't walk through the warehouse, but, you can see it across everywhere. And they have many women in positions of power of that business, whether it be the head of a section or a manager of a store or a group manager. And some of the women that work there are incredible. They're very diverse. They're very incredible people. It is the kind of place where I never felt intimidated to speak up. I never felt intimidated to talk to another male, whether it be a manager or the owner of the company, because they really walk the walk. They put in their policy documents, and you see it in stores, but it's not just there because they're trying to win some kind of, community award for accepting, gender diverse people. They're actually legitimately supporting people. I'm a nearly 40-year-old married straight woman. I'm pretty boring by the standards of a lot of people these days, but I've never been treated like I'm more welcome in a business, and I loved the way they wrote it into their policy documents. I applied for work there because they wrote it into their job ads, and I continue to stay there for as long as I could, and that was a big contributing factor. So it's something that I think there needs to be more done in terms of, legal systems, obviously really a big convoluted space and is very old, probably written by men at the beginning, and it's starting to change, which is really cool. But I do really think that Black Hearts has something to own in terms of the way they treat their staff and the way that they promote that. And it's certainly a big part of what I've taken into our business, how I physically and verbally treat my staff, whether they're in my team or they're not, and the way I treat customers and deal with conflict. I think it takes a lot of work and a lot of patience and a lot of empathy to become a company like that. If I can be half as amazing as Black Hearts in God knows how many years it took them to build, I'll be very proud of myself and very proud of our team.
You often hear from women owners that customers, will go up and ask them if they can speak to the owner. Like people don't naturally think that a woman can be a business owner. What have you found in terms of how customers and staff treat you differently or not now that you own your own business?
I could actually laugh out loud at that question. I have always wanted to own my own business. Even as a little child, I was playing shops, I was playing cafes, I was playing record industry owner, you name it. And as I grew older, in the back of my mind, I had this little saying that I thought, I can't wait for the day for someone to ask for a manager or ask to speak to someone higher up, and I can say to them, you're looking at him.
Oh my God, I love it. Shivers.
Yep. Yeah. So this question makes me laugh because coming in, when I finally got the guts up to open my own business, I did it because I thought, you know what, I don't know everything, but I feel like I can probably pull something off, and I've got enough support around me and experience in my belt to open something. Did I think that I'd be treated differently as an owner as compared to a worker and a woman? I've got to be honest, yeah, I did. I expected to be treated with more respect. I am treated exactly the same. So sadly, I think that the only difference between owning something now and having been a worker all my life is that I'm just a bit more assertive now, and that just comes from age and experience. In the time, again, the short time that I've owned Maggie's, there's been a lot of times on the floor that a male, different ages, has asked to they've either commented, on either, oh, gee, the owner, he must be really proud, or I'd like to speak to the manager. My funniest interaction actually was a situation in which some guys came in, and one guy was kind of playing this, I know a lot about the industry and I work in the industry card, which I thought, that's fine. I do that sometimes too, have fun. And he said to me, can I have a particular discount or a particular thing? And I said, oh, I'm sorry, I've never met you in my life. Like, no. And he said, well, I know the owner. I want to speak to the owner. And I said, yeah, you're looking at him. And luckily for me, his friends loved it. They had a good laugh. He tried to worm out of it. And I said, mate, I'm sorry, but I am the owner. I'm one of the owners and I'm in charge. So that's not going to happen. There's been another situation where I was kind of put through the ringer by a friend of a friend of a friend in the industry. They wanted what they couldn't get again. Again, it was another male. And again, he said, I've done so much for this business and I know the owner. And I actually, Dani cracked up laughing in front of a lot of people because he was being so outrageous and said, you do realise I'm one of the owners and I'd like you to tell me what exactly you've done for this business. I also remember when I started the company that obviously the banner, its overarching banner of Maggie's and hopefully many more pipe dreams, in our trust agreement, as a lot of people would know, if there's multiple directors, you've got to appoint certain people for certain jobs. One of the jobs is essentially all the paperwork and admin, and it's called the company secretary. I was joked about by one of my colleagues as not as being, oh, this is my business partner or this is my manager or whatnot. I literally was called, oh, this is just our company secretary. And I thought, do you see me wearing a mini skirt and glasses and sitting behind a desk? Like, that is not my job. It's not what I'm doing. They didn't mean, I think, what they said, but I was incredibly insulted because apart from opening a business and working the floor and hosting and a whole other bunch of things, I look after a lot of the financials. I make major decisions on financials, HR and legal for our company. I'm opening up doors for us to create partnerships and opportunities so we can grow and be sustainable as a business. And do you really think I'm just a secretary? Like, is that what you think I am? So that was really interesting. And, I think when people, I get a real bee in my bonnet when people I do get people looking past me and pointing at two of the guys in the bar, one of which isn't an owner. He's one of our managers and he's brilliant, but saying, oh, I want to talk to him. He looks like an owner. And I was like, he's actually my employee and I'm the owner. So it is kind of funny because I honestly, maybe naively, did think I'd be treated a lot differently, and I'm not at all. I'm looked at as being another waiter on the floor or another kid working hospitality, and it's not the case.
I mean, just the entitlement that walks through the door, with the rest of that person, it's just quite staggering. It also makes me think about, you said I didn't know everything, but, I felt it was time that I could take that leap and be a business owner. But it makes me think about that truism about, that men will apply for jobs that they're underqualified for and women won't apply for jobs that they are overqualified for. It's just, it just makes me wonder, how many other women are there who feel that they are not ready to make the leap when a man with the same, amount of experience, the same pipe dream would just go for it. And I think it would be great if, more women felt that it was time, that they did know enough. And I mean, anyone that opens a business can tell you that no matter how prepared you think you are, like you learn your lessons, once you throw the doors open. So, yeah, I do wonder. And also, secretaries are awesome too. Like, there's nothing wrong with being a secretary. And it's even that idea that you are diminishing someone by calling them that is a problem. So, okay, you are a business owner. Maggie's, it's had a great review recently in Good Food, and congratulations. You are off and running, Kaidee. So what do you're in the next generation of owners, like, what is the future like for you, for your employees of all genders and orientations and customers?
Gosh, that's a big question. In all honesty, I guess the Miss Universe answer would be, I want peace. I want to be in an industry that doesn't have any issues between the sexes. I want to be in an industry where there's no form of harassment. But, I really think that while we have come a long way since I first started in the industry to now, there's so many people that are calling out bad behaviours, whether it be someone like yourself in journalism, or it's someone like a Grace Tame or Instagram meme people or whatever. We unfortunately still have a long way to go. And I think if, we as these new business owners, like I'm friends with a lot of people in the industry in Melbourne, obviously, and I'm very lucky and fortunate to know these people. And I've tried to make inroads really just because I've got this thing that, when I say I don't know everything, but I now feel like I've got the gumption. I like to kind of ride on the coattails of other people, and I'm not ashamed of that. If I think someone's doing something amazing, take Rob at Caretaker's Cottage, for example, or a really good friend of mine, Rita, who co-owned Romeo Lane in the city. I jump on their coattails because, frankly, they're smarter than me. They've done it before me, and they're still doing some pretty cool stuff, and I kind of want to be around that, and I'm hoping that rubs off on me. But, these kind of people are amazing because they're doing some really cool stuff in the industry from a hospo perspective and, food and bev perspective. But the way they're talking and calling out, harassment in lots of different forms and from lots of different people is pretty awe-inspiring to me. And that's why I agreed, even though I was bloody terrified to do this call with you, it is why I agreed to do it, because I thought, no, I need to push myself. And it has been something that I haven't talked about enough in my life and my career, and I want to talk about it more. I think at the moment, I do really think because of, media, Instagram, Twitter, what have you, that in this industry, particularly in Melbourne now, there's nowhere to hide anymore. And I think that toxicity and misogyny, whether it be behind the bar, on the floor, in the kitchen, it's going to continue now to kill businesses and end careers. It's going to continue to be a problem. We're going to have so many issues that just have this never-ending flow and effect that's really hard to claw back, in my experience. It's going to affect financials, people wanting to come into the door when they've read an article about your business or something that happened in your business, we're going to lose staff. Our staff retention is going to be completely out the window because people talk. And it's also easier to share and quicker to share information these days than it was when I started in the industry. It was just verbal communication you had back then, whereas now you can easily, before going for a job anywhere, Google something on Reddit or, look at a hashtag and there you go. You've seen something about a business that makes you go, I don't want to work there. Or as a customer, I don't want to drink there. There's a few that have been called out recently that in my community, we're all refusing to go to a few certain places because we've seen this. And it's not just hearsay, like it's real. I think a few different things need to change, and there's a lot of I don't want to just be saying, oh, women are the only ones who are creating the change, because that's not true. I do think a lot of men in the industry are doing a really amazing job to be fair and have equality between their staff and their owners. But I think we all need to work more on how stress and alcohol and an old school like boys club mentality plays into hospitality. I love alcohol. I'm sure everybody who works in the industry just about does, and it's the reason, in my opinion, for living. I love the history and the romance behind wine and bourbons and you name it. And unfortunately, even for myself, there's times where stress or just wanting to let your hair down means you drink more, and it also means that you're more lucid with your behaviour, whether it be after a big night out or whether you've been drinking during the day and gone to a shift. I think we need to kind of get away from that boys club mentality and culture in hospitality businesses that have alcohol. I think in my previous experience where there hasn't been alcohol served, cafes, for example, it's been a lot easier. Frankly, I think there needs to be a lot of old behaviours need to be stamped out, and I think we need more education in the industry for the workers, for the owners, on how to manage stress efficiently, how to speak up and have the guts to speak up to customers or staff, and not let alcohol kind of really take over everything you're trying to do and trying to achieve, because it does, and it takes away from everything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's pretty bravely said, especially when, you're running a place with liquor in the name. But I mean, do you think like non-alc is obviously a massive movement? Do you feel like that's got a bigger role to play?
Yes and no. From a customer perspective, especially over the last five or so years in the industry, I'm seeing more of a push of customers wanting to buy non-alcoholic, and it's not just enough anymore to have a couple of softies and some water on the menu. Going to the level of having, whether it be pre-bottled or you're making it in-house, having mocktails that are as intricate and interesting and delicious as alcoholic cocktails is really important. I don't think if I'm really honest, I don't think it makes a difference. There's a few wonderful businesses who have opened up with non-alcoholic gin, for example. I think it's great, and I think for people who don't want to drink or need a break or whatever the reason is, it's wonderful. But so long as alcohol is legal, especially in this country, we're going to enjoy it and imbibe. I think it's still going to continue to grow and be big. Certainly, obviously, the non-alcoholic beer space has grown exponentially in the last few years, which is amazing. Do I think it's going to change, behaviour? No, I don't. I think, unfortunately, alcohol abuse in all its forms is too ingrained in this culture that we have and that we've created. And it's up to everybody, staff included, but from the top down, the owners and the managers need to do something different. We, like, as mentioned, we love a drink. We have liquor in the name. Cocktails are our big focus. We absolutely adore it. But for me, something I introduced recently, and I'll be honest, Dani, I felt really bad about it. I recently introduced an alcohol and drugs policy into our business. There's always one, standard, but our policy at the moment, until further notice, is that no one is allowed to drink on site, whether you're just having one knockoff or you're wanting to have a shot or something over the bar. It is totally weird, and I totally do not want to have a completely dry bar, but if it's going to keep all of our staff, owners, directors, managers switched on, and it's going to keep us nice and clear and be able to help our staff or help our customers, then that's what I'm willing to do. And yeah, I guess my other kind of point I was going to go back to earlier is, again, in my experience, HR is something that didn't exist across the hospitality landscape. There's never, in no joke, in my entire career, there has never been a hospitality person to go to, a HR person to go to, or a department. Black Hearts was different because Black Hearts is technically retail. They had a really great HR person and HR department. We don't have one. We can't afford it. I know that it's it's a valuable thing, and you can get outsourced HR personnel, which is something that I do. And I spend a lot of time training in that field myself so that I can do a better job for our employees. And I think HR is a big thing that does need to come into hospitality more, and not just the big companies where they can afford it. It needs to be for smaller groups as well. I think probably in the past, the reason HR departments or treatment weren't a thing is because a lot of these businesses are small businesses, so owner-operators, and a lot of the perpetrators of pretty poor behaviour, whether it be misogyny, sexism, harassment, the perpetrators themselves ran the show. And, I have noticed my cost of goods and operating costs since we opened have skyrocketed, even in the 4 months that I've been there. So it's becoming like not only harder to make money as a profit, but it's becoming harder to pay bills. And do I want to add just a HR person to our payroll at the moment? I'd love to, but I can't afford it. So I think something needs to change in this sphere where, we have more access to free resources and learnings and, HR, I guess, what am I trying to say here? I'm going to finish there. I keep going on.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're saying is that, there are so many pressures on businesses, now more than ever, that people are always looking at, what costs are not essential. And I suppose people are definitely going to ask whether their HR is in-house or outsourced. It's a cost. And I suppose it's about, businesses looking at, it's always a balance of cost and value. So, what sort of business do you want to be? What sort of values do you want to have filter through not only your own business but the wider world? These are really big questions. Kaidee, have you said everything that you wanted to say in this conversation?
You know what? I've got one thing I'd really like to add. I essentially want to say that if I can give any advice, and again, I'm new to the industry as a business owner, but I've been an employee in this industry for a long time. Some things that I am trying to implement in my business that I think are really important and that I really encourage other new and old owners to implement is in regards to customers and their treatment of staff, and especially misogyny, the topic we're talking about. I think you need to ask them to leave. And when you ask them to leave your business, you need to tell them why. I think it's really important. I think it's really important to say, we don't need your business. And don't be afraid to turn that money down. Even if you think they're going to tell 5 other people and you're going to lose that revenue, I don't care. If that sends me broke and I have to shut my business one day, so be it. I'm not going to let people come into my premises and treat any of my staff or any of my customers in any form of like sexism, with misogyny, harassment. I also think that the other two pieces I'd like to say is that, you need to protect your staff and you need to listen to them. Have the patience, have the empathy to actually care for them and take the time. I do 5 different roles at my business. I'm the managing director. I also work on the floor as a waiter, as a host. I have no time. But if I can see that I need to talk to someone, whether it's pulling them up on behaviour or whether it's just checking in and seeing if they're okay, I make the time. I pull them aside. I say, hey, let's have a chat. Are you okay? I think it's really important to remember that we're not robots. We're human beings. Every day is going to be different. Every emotion is going to be different, and people are going to experience stress differently. I just think as well, when you're starting your business and running your business, it is really difficult to stay on track, especially aligned with your own values. But all I can say is don't be token. Make sure that you don't just say something like, oh, your business is gender diverse in your employment ads, for example. You have to actually put that into practice. Lastly and most importantly, something I've learned, which I'll be honest has been really difficult, is, I have a number of business partners, and I've done that for a reason. I have business partners that can cook. I can't cook. And they don't just cook, they're really fucking good chefs, bartenders, you name it. I've gone into business with them, so there's a lot of hats to wear. But I think as owners, as colleagues, or as an employee, I always want to encourage everybody to pull up other people on their bad behaviour, offer mediation, do whatever you can, not just employees. You should be able to say to your boss or your business partners or your managers, hey, we need to talk about the way you spoke to so-and-so. It's not okay, and here is why, and here what we need to do to move forward. I think, unfortunately, a lot of big people, big wigs in the industry, as well as managers or new owners, still get away with some pretty shitty behaviour because of the fact that they are an owner and they can. It's like they've bought themselves this, I guess, right to treat people badly, and I don't think that's okay. And I think that we should all speak out about it and pull people up on it.
Amazing, Kaidee. Well, everything you've said makes me want to spend money in your business. So I think, I think you're right. That's not the money you want. There's money out there that is the money that you want. And you don't have to, just settle for stuff and put up with stuff. We certainly hope people will take that on. We've talked about a lot of bad shit, but you've stuck around in hospitality because you love it. So let's finish on an up note. Tell me what hospitality means to you.
Oh, hospitality is life. I'm very old school, so I really appreciate good hospitality in the sense of the word, not just an industry. I've always said, particularly about my business partner Scott in the kitchen. He's our head chef. Exec chef, writes the menu. He's an incredibly talented dude. And I've always said to him, your food is so good, and the way you treat people and the way you feed people, I could sit on a crate in a back alley that smells of piss behind a bin and I would be wrapped because of the service. I've also said a million times, you can go to any number of million bars, pubs, restaurant, cafes that are pretty fucking poor in terms of the quality of food and bev, but the service makes you go there. You feel warm, you feel invited, it's kind of nice, you feel snuggy, happy place. It's all about the way you treat people. And for me, I live for hospitality and I spend so much goddamn money in places that are good people to me. And I don't think it takes a lot to be nice. And I don't think it takes a lot to be genuine. Again, something that I learned from Black Hearts was about genuine service. Don't lie and say that you know anything about Chardonnay if you don't. Be honest, go get someone who does know. And I think genuine service, genuinely being welcoming is why I live for hospitality. It makes me feel like I'm part of something, even if it's just for the night.
So beautiful. Thank you so much, Kaidee, for coming on and having this very important chat. I think, you've spoken so well. I hope you feel good about what you've put out there. For anybody who is struggling with some of these topics, please do remember that number, 1-800-RESPECT. That's a 24/7 service. So, don't hesitate to use it. Thank you so much for being on Dirty Linen, Kaidee. Really grateful to you.
Oh, thanks so much, Dani. I really appreciate it. It was very nerve-wracking, but I'm really stoked I got to say some of the things that I'm really passionate about.
I am too. Thank you. This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.
This is a Deep in the Weeds production.